My name is Marshall Houserman. I am the Executive Director of Enrollment Management at Shorelight. And today we're going to go through and do a little U.S. admissions workshop. It's going to be an introduction to the application process and finding your fit. And it's also going to be an informational session on why the United States is a great destination, either for your students, if you're a counselor, or for you as a student, if you're a student joining us today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So like I just said, today we're going to cover why the United States, why should students choose the United States right now, how to apply, what materials you need to prepare, and then how to apply, finding your fit. One of the most overlooked things that students do when they make choices is finding the university that's the best fit for them. And one of the things that we want to be able to do is point out that, the right geographic location, the right size of the university, that they have the right program of study that you might be looking for. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that again today as well. One of the biggest reasons to choose studying in the USA, if you're a student looking to study abroad or in another country, is that of the big four international student destinations, the United States is the only one looking for growth in international students. I've displayed here some more recent quotes from different news articles or websites related to the other three big study destinations, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And I won't read all the quotes, but I'll say, but we will read the Canadian one. In 2024 and 2025, all provinces in Canada are required to collectively reduce the international student population by 35%, amounting to 210,000 fewer students. That's from a recent article in the Financial Times of February 2024. As you may or may not know, all three of these destinations are tightening regulations around international student mobility in one way or another. The United States is really the only one of those major destinations prepared to continue to welcome and accept growing numbers of international students to its universities and colleges. There are obviously other reasons beyond the capacity to help international students achieve their dreams. I've listed some of them here, and we're going to go through them actually one by one, but they include the fact that in the United States, we have some of the best universities in the world, whether it's the Ivy League institutions, what we refer to as the new Ivies, or the public Ivies, places like University of California, Berkeley, or University of Michigan, or it's our public university and private university network across the United States. Universities like Auburn University, SUNY Buffalo in New York State, University of Illinois, Chicago. For students looking for any type of different destination, we have some of the best universities in the world for students looking to further their education. The United States is also known as a destination for career experience and opportunities, and the chance to really enhance your education with some career internship opportunities, as well as post-study work. United States universities are also known for, higher education is also known for its curriculum flexibility. And what I mean by that is the ability to choose different options within your program of study, maybe choose majors and minors, being able to switch degrees. In many other countries around the world, if you start a degree program, it is very difficult to decide that you want to study something else. In the United States, it's very common, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then finally, the idea of STEM OPT and the opportunity for students interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to spend an additional 3 years post graduation working in the United States on their student visa. By the way, did you know that a simple Google search, just a simple Google search of study in the USA yields over 6 million results? So obviously the United States is a very extremely popular destination for students looking to study in another country. Let's walk through some of the reasons I just outlined for why students want to study in the USA. And first is the Career Services Office. Universities in the United States invest a lot of time and effort in preparing students for their future career goals. Universities often have a career center on campus, and for some universities, that career center isn't just one singular location, but is also a career services office for each individual college within the university. Career services support at U.S. universities includes resume preparation, tips on writing a cover letter. One of the things I hate doing the most, to be honest, is writing a letter that tells the reader more about yourself and really tries to sell you as a potential employee. Elevator pitch preparations. How can you go into, a job fair or a career fair or a large hiring interview day and be able to speak about yourself? How can you pivot in 5 minutes and say what work you've done as a student that would make you a great member of that office? And then career fairs and hiring recruiter meetings on campus. So a lot of U.S. universities are invested in having their own career fairs on campus and bringing job recruiters to their university. Many different universities that I've worked at in the past, having had these types of career days where places like Apple and Google, Procter and Gamble, and lots of other, big corporations come and actively recruit talent, including international talent, from their colleges within the university. And so it's one of those things that really it does stand out for the United States in terms of really helping students find and prepare for the next phase of their life. Like I mentioned earlier, the U.S. is also known as a destination for curriculum flexibility and major and minor options. If you're interested in business, but you also have a passion for design, in the U.S., you can combine those passions and double major. Students have the flexibility to change their major. So one of my best friends thought that she was going to be a medical doctor and spent over 1 year doing a pre-medicine program where she was, really involved in the natural sciences. And then she realized that she would much rather be invested in literature and books, and changed course, became an English major, finished still in 4 years. That's the other beauty, is that you still finish within the degree length of time. She still finished in 4 years and is now a very successful archive librarian for the Kellogg cereal company. So those are just some options, just some things that you have the flexibility to take on in the United States that you don't really have in a lot of other university destinations around the world. It's very difficult to get 2 years into a degree in other countries, even the UK and Australia included, and then say, I think I'm going to change my degree, and have some of the work that you already have done be recognized, and then also be able to finish on time. And in the United States, that's very common for students to do. You also have, what we talked about just briefly, double major and minor opportunities. So again, we see a lot of students being able to combine and lock their passions together. I met with a student maybe 2 years ago now, who was interested in bioengineering, but also had a real passion for swimming and wanted to do something related to biomedical devices and athletic training. And so she actually got a double major in the applied health sciences and bioengineering so she could work on how, because she wanted to study how people with disabilities could be assisted in swimming in the pool, which I thought was amazing and fantastic. But it just goes to show you the things that you're able to creatively combine in US universities that are not often available to you in other countries. Also, just the amount of degrees that US universities typically offer, and majors across several different disciplines, whether it's in the theater arts or liberal arts, natural sciences, medicine, business, engineering, etc. You name it, you can combine those options. Let's talk a little bit about what we talked about with the double major. In the United States, it's very common for international students. We see it all the time. I see this every day in the work that I do. Students are really focused on STEM degrees, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degrees, for amazing career prospects. They're looking for the opportunity to avail themselves of our 3-year post-study work opportunity. But they also, a lot of those students find themselves, at least in the first year of their program, often wandering around campus. When I worked at the University of Illinois, Chicago, students would often come in and say, I'm starting this engineering program, but I really also am interested in graphic design, or I'm also really interested in business. I'm not sure that I wanted to do engineering or if I wanted to do business, and different things like that. So a lot of students are focused on being able to get that post-work opportunity and increase their salary potential after graduation, but they also want to combine those degrees with their passion. And so that's why it's really attractive to study in the United States if you want to combine those two things and not just be stuck studying engineering, but not have the ability of exploring something else that you're interested in learning at a higher level. The USA is the world's leading destination for entrepreneurs and startup businesses. And it's no coincidence that I think that it's because of this opportunity, because students can think creatively while also combining some real world skills in learning how to run a business or learning how to solve a problem, etc. So it's really a great opportunity for students to think about as they plan their future. And of course, a big part of that is our STEM optional practical training opportunity. And for those who aren't aware on the call, STEM basically stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It can include a very large range of degrees, depending on how that degree relates to the world of STEM. A STEM designated degree in the United States, and it's designated a STEM degree with approval by the US government, allows a student 3-year optional practical training. That's our post-study work opportunity on your student visa for up to 3 years at every single degree level. So students who graduate with a bachelor's degree have 3 years of OPT available. If they use all 3 years and then they get a master's degree, they have another 3 years of opportunity. And then students who get a PhD have another 3 years of opportunity. Of course, you can also take that OPT opportunity and perhaps, combine that with an employer who's interested in sponsoring additional study, getting an H-1B, and continuing on in your future. Those are all opportunities available to students. STEM OPT, STEM degrees in the United States are often very attractive because of their experiential learning component. And what we mean by that is that students in the US often receive a world-leading theoretical education, but they have the opportunity to assist in research, practical learning, and projects with real-world business and science problems. In many countries, if you're studying engineering or business, it's out of the textbook. It's not with a hands-on learning approach. In the United States, it often requires some sort of internship or lab components or other, parts of the curriculum that really have you engage with your field of study. And many students also find that they can find work opportunities on campus related to their field. The other great advantage for STEM students in the US is that they also participate in a general education curriculum that creates well-rounded thought leaders in their field. One of the greatest things about US education is the general education component at the undergraduate level. Students are not just only taking chemical engineering courses from the first day to the last day of their study. They're also taking a breadth of courses in different fields, fulfilling a science requirement, fulfilling a fine arts requirement, fulfilling a historical component, and learning more about the past and understanding the past, learning more about current social trends today, which really help bolster well-rounded thought leaders, students who think critically about the world and about the society they live in, and not just only about the degree that they've received. Now I want to switch and talk a little bit about getting the process started. So you're interested in the United States. We've talked about all the great reasons that you should choose the US. We've talked about the potential for growth in the United States higher education market. We've talked about the opportunities for STEM OPT. We've talked about the Career Services Office. But how do you go about choosing a US university? And so now we're going to talk about what you need to do to prepare your materials. And then we're going to shift gears at towards the end and talk about finding the right option for you as a student. And then, of course, you've got to start your application and get the materials in to engage with a university of your choice and hopefully enroll in a U.S. university campus, whether it's this fall, 2024, or you're looking to the future. So first of all, gathering application materials. First, we've got to make sure that we know what application materials are most common in U.S. Applications. And they really are, for the most part, standard, requirements for students of any major discipline, that you'll need your academic records and you're going to need an English proficiency test score if you do not come from an English-speaking country. So we're going to talk in more depth about those, starting with the academic record. Your transcripts or academic records tell your academic story. They tell an admissions officer like me what you've done since grade 9 and what you plan to do in your final year. They let us know if you're prepared for a degree in engineering, if you're prepared for with a background to study business. They let us know if you're really interested in math and science, whether we might advise other major disciplines for you to consider exploring, or what you've done in the past and what your achievements are. So we really want you to collect all your transcripts. Most universities are going to require transcripts from grade 9 on. And they're also going to require them from every institution. So if you've been to more than one school, you should make those early arrangements to contact your previous schools through grade 9 through 12 or 11, depending on where you study, and make sure that you have all of them available. You should know your grades when you're looking at making an application. You want to know whether your grades are in line with the university that you're choosing to apply to. If you have extremely good grades, you should know that. And if you have grades that have some spotlights that have some really good marks in your previous study, and you have some that are not so great, you should know those as well. And it's important because you should understand your strengths. You want to know, you should understand if you're actually ready and prepared for an engineering degree, if you've done well in math and science in high school. I see a lot of students who think that they should apply to engineering or pre-medicine and have not the best grades in biology or in mathematics and in preparation for university study. Most likely that's telling us a story, right? And that story is that maybe there's a better option for you at the higher education level, whether that's business or a liberal arts education, something in the field of literature or history. Just last week, I was reading transcripts, and a student wanted engineering, and this particular individual did not qualify for the program they were applying to. But one thing that I noted was that they had extremely good grades. They had A's, mostly the US equivalent of an A grade, in the literature and arts categories. But they had poor or average grades in the sciences and mathematics. And so really taking a look at what your performance indicates can also help you decide what you're looking to study as you move forward with a major in your future application. You're also going to want to prepare for an English language placement test. Most international students need to prove some proficiency in English language by submitting English language placement test results. Before you apply to a university, you want to make sure that the English language test you have selected is accepted at your university. For example, if you've taken a Duolingo English test, you want to make sure that the universities that you are choosing actually will accept that test for admission. There's not one right answer for all universities on what English tests are accepted. So you want to make sure that the English test you do take is accepted by the places that you have an interest in. Or if you've already taken an English language test, maybe you might have to consider taking another one if the university of your dreams doesn't accept the English test that you've completed. I see a lot of students leave applications incomplete because they have an English test that doesn't qualify for admission for the university they've chosen. And one thing that I think students have to consider is that they may have to take more than one English test if they want to cover all the universities that they have an interest in. The most accepted English test in higher education in the United States include the TOEFL, the test of English as foreign language, IELTS, and Pearson PTE. We kind of think of those as the big three tests. If I look across multiple universities, wherever, coast to coast, north, south, Midwest, I'm going to see those tests on a university's acceptance page. There are other tests out there in the market, and some of them are gaining extreme popularity. Duolingo English test is probably the one that's gaining the most popularity, but it also does have a lot of universities that do not accept that test. And so it's really important, if you're choosing one of those tests, to think about the fact that you may or may not be able to use that test for the university you're applying to. There are other tests out there like Duolingo. There's ITAP, the International Test of English Proficiency. There's Cambridge English. There's Michigan Language Assessment. So there's lots of different tests out there. English language tests are usually valid for 2 years. If you've taken your English test already, you want to make sure that it's still going to be valid at the time of your application and the time of enrollment. A lot of universities in the United States, that 2-year test validity is from the time that you enroll to campus. So if you're looking to start in fall of 2024 and classes begin on August 20th, then the oldest test that you can have is from like August 20th of 2022. Anything older than that is considered invalid or expired. Now, part of that is an immigration regulation around certain tests. Some of that is the test companies themselves and their validity time. And a big reason for all of that is because your language learning capacity can change drastically over 2 years. If you studied English 2 years ago and then haven't looked at an English language textbook since, and haven't practiced English with friends, colleagues, or meetups, cafes, whatever, you could have lost a lot of the language capacity you already had and actually not be as prepared 2 years later to successfully sit in an English language speaking classroom. And so that's part of the reason that your test is usually valid for 2 years. It's always better to have a test. My personal recommendation is that students usually have a test within the last year. That way, it really does tell the admissions office what your English language preparation has been within the course of the last year as you look to study in the United States. Another thing to note is that if you're from an English-speaking country, you may want to check the university website for the university you're applying to on whether they extend a waiver because of a previous knowledge of English. Students from English-speaking Canada, outside of Quebec for the most part, Australia, the United Kingdom, and definitely other Ireland, etc., may have an exemption from taking an English language test. Students from other English-speaking countries, like those in the British Caribbean, or we call it the Commonwealth Caribbean, those in West Africa from English-speaking countries, some countries in Southeast Asia, they might find themselves exempt from an English language test as well. So it really depends. That's going to vary university to university. The same principle that English language testing is not one size fits all or standardized is true in waivers as well. And for some of you, choosing an individual major may require additional materials. You may also have additional materials based on the university overall that you're applying to. So you're going to want to check your university's additional requirements outside of an academic record and transcript. And you may want to review if there's specific additional materials for your desired study program. As an example, additional materials may include an essay, whether that's an essay with a prompt that tells you, like, why is blue the best color in the world? Or it may be a free-form essay of 500 words that tells the admissions office wants you to spend 500 words telling more about yourself. It can really vary, and that's something you want to check with the university as well. Some universities do require the SAT or ACT examination. If you have followed U.S. higher education, you may see that recently some big name universities have reinstated their SAT examination requirement. A lot of universities in the United States are still test optional. So if you have a SAT or ACT score and you did very well and it will help your application, submitting it as your option. And if you did okay on the test and aren't really sure that it's going to help your application, you don't have any requirement to submit and share that information with the university. Other programs may require a resume or a curricula vitae, CV. Very common in the theater and music space is an audition material. So if you want to study musical theater at a prominent university, there's probably a good chance you have to have a singing or acting audition. If you're interested in a music conservatory, you're most likely going to have to do some sort of in-person or video recorded audition. Those are just very standard parts of those specific majors. As you're thinking about your application, if you're interested in acting or the theater or music, etc., consider what those audition materials are that are required and the prompts. And then, of course, if you're interested in the fine arts or architecture, you may have a drawing or art portfolio or some other portfolio showcasing your work. It's very common for graphic design degrees. It's very common for architecture. Those interested in a Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting or in drawing or sculpting, to have a drawing or art portfolio, depending on your interest. So those are all things to consider when you're looking at your universities. If you think that you're going to be the next violin virtuoso and you haven't ever studied violin, it might be something that you want to consider as part of your application process. If there are any universities that accept students who want to learn violin from the first semester, rather than having to prove some level of competency in an audition. For the last part of our session, we're going to talk about finding the right fit in the United States and what it means for U.S. admissions. So you have your application materials ready. You're ready to look at universities. We want you to consider the questions related here to finding the right university for you. The very first question, I think that's really important, is the price right for me? Families and students often have a sort of understanding of the range of affordability that they have. And I don't say that you should not apply to a university if the price of the university seems out of reach, because there may be scholarships available, there may be other financial assistance methods that you can avail yourself of, but you should make that consideration when determining which university you actually are planning to enroll in, because it's going to be really important that finances are not a part of your stress. Okay, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. The next is location. The United States is huge. It is not the same place in Michigan as it is in New York, as it is in California. It's not the same in New York City as it is in upstate New York near Buffalo. It's not the same in the United States if you're in the South or if you're in the Southeast or in the Southwest. And that's one part of it. The culture can be very different in different parts of the United States. You also have to consider, do you want to study in a big city? Are you ready for the bright lights and big city feel? Or do you want a smaller college town vibe? Or are you looking for a rural college in a very small town where everyone knows everybody else? Those are different things that you want to consider as a student before you make a choice and then are like, I never wanted to be in a big city and this overwhelms me. Or I am so bored in this small town and I need to get out of here. Make sure that you really think about what's the right opportunity for you. And then lastly, is the academic major that's offered right for me? Have I chosen a university first and then chosen a major that is maybe not exactly what I was thinking about studying, right? But is maybe something that um, uh, is close to it, but not quite what I was interested in because I really wanted this university. And sometimes that can actually make the university choice seem miserable once you arrive on campus. If the university doesn't quite offer biomedical engineering, so you're like, I'll just suffer through biological sciences, that may not be the right fit for you. It may end up making the experience not the one that you're looking for. So finding your fit, price. You need to understand your contribution limit. What is it that you or your family can afford as you're looking toward understanding that? You want to research scholarship opportunities. You want to know what the university offers in terms of scholarships, but you should also research. You can do a quick Google search or a quick internet search, and you'll find lots of different opportunities to research scholarship opportunities. There are lots of scholarships out there that include opportunities for international students that are not tied to a specific university. You should definitely prepare and do your homework there. You also want to consider costs outside tuition. One of the things that students often don't think about is how much it's going to cost for daily life outside of university study. Okay, so you have the contribution available to pay for the tuition, but how much is rent in housing? How much is going out to dinner? How much are groceries for the week? Those are things that vary city to city or in different parts of the US. And so you really want to factor those in as you look at it. And then finally, be realistic. I hear students a lot of times, one of the major reasons that students end up leaving an institution is actually financial. And what I hear from students is that, oh, I knew I could cover the first year and I was hoping to find other things. I was going to wing it and I'm going to find other opportunities for years 2, 3, and 4. And if there's anybody on here for graduate study, I hear this at the graduate education level as well, where students are like, oh, I can pay for the first semester, but I'm going to wing it and hope that I get some sort of tuition reimbursement or teaching assistant position afterwards. That's not making a realistic choice, because one of the things that you want to consider is, if that doesn't happen, what are the things that I need to consider? If I don't get that scholarship in year 2, if I don't find another financial opportunity, if those things don't come to me, if my family can't actually make payments for 4 years, if I'm not able to, what is that going to mean for me as I move forward? So being realistic about that, so that you're not really shattered after the first year or the first semester about whether you can stay at the university, is really something that I try to make sure that students, parents, counselors understand, because it really is something that I think people need to spend more time on and be more financially conscious of the decision they're making. Location can be a huge part of making a decision. Like I said before, do you want to be in a big city? Some of the students at University of Illinois Chicago absolutely love it because it is the US's third largest city. It's in the heart of downtown. It's about 20-minute walk to the central business district called the Loop. And you can ride the train all over the city. You can experience different cultures, different feels. But it's bright, it's loud. There's people moving around 24 hours a day. And that's not for every student. Some students may want a college town environment, like at, say, Auburn University or Louisiana State or somewhere else. And when they choose a college town like that, They may want that atmosphere that supports the university on the weekends, where the life in this medium-sized city is really about the university, and the culture revolves around the university and not all the other things that an urban city may bring. Or you may want an extremely small town where the focus is really on studies. The campus community is small, a population of 1,000 to 2,000 students who really get to know each other very well and feel sheltered and surrounded by the town that the college is located in. Personal story here. I had dreams of going to a big university, 40,000 people, as a child, and I grew up in a very small town of 600 people. I made a very real decision when applying to universities that a big college town even would not be the right fit for me. That moving from a town and a village of 600 people, I was going to need that support that came with being at a university or college the size of about 1,000 to 2,000 students. So I chose a liberal arts college. And for me, that was the right decision because it was the first stepping stone in exposure to higher education, the rest of the world. It encouraged study abroad, etc. I probably would not have done or well at a big university or in a big city, and that would have changed my experience entirely. So the fit for me was spending time in a rural at a rural liberal arts college. Now, that stepping stone allowed me to go to a large university for graduate education, eventually moving to a big urban city, and really finding my feet when it came to that. But I would not have been prepared for that at the time I chose study. So those are things that students really should really think about. Location is also key in terms of culture. Are you interested in the culture of the Northeast of the United States, the South, the Midwest, Pacific Northwest, West Coast? They all have different vibes. And so, taking that into account is very important. If you think that you're really interested in California and Cali culture, and then you think about the fact that you want to live in Chicago, that's probably not going to vibe very well. If you're interested in the dress up events that happen at Southern universities, like the SEC football conference, where students come to Saturday football games in a tux or in sort of a formal dress, that might be something that you're interested in if you want to study in the U.S. South. If you're looking for that real preppy culture of checkered shirts and hockey and talking about ice hockey, then you might want to choose the Northeast. So those are different things that you want to do research on. Take into account your interests and understand them. You also should understand the weather. And that's the last thing I'll say about that is, if you don't ever want to see snow, you probably don't want to go to the Midwest or somewhere in the mountains. You probably don't want to you don't want to choose studying at the University of Utah, for example, or studying at University of Minnesota. But if you're interested in the mountains, or you're interested in all four seasons, those might be places that you want to choose. If you're really looking to spend a lot of time in the water, you might want to choose somewhere on one of the coasts that gives you that opportunity to spend more time at the ocean or at the beach. So those are all things to keep in mind as well. And then, do you have the right fit academically? It's really important that students look at their grades and look at their university major offerings and STEM designation, etc. So these are all questions that you should really ask yourself as you're finding your fit academically. Too often I see students, and I will tell you, the first one is the most important on this list to me. I see students with the with high grades, choose a university that's looking to lift students up who have fair grades. And they don't shoot for the university that they really qualify for. In university US admissions, we call that under matching. What it really means is that you're underselling yourself. Universities serve different purposes depending on their rank, the academic grades in which they admit students at, etc. If a university is admitting students who need a little bit more help in math and science, that's going to be the culture of the university. They're going to assume that even the top students need a little wraparound support when it comes to mathematics. And you may find yourself stifled, stymied, bored, if you have an extremely well-rounded background in that. Going forward, and you should consider an application to a university that more matches your skills. That being said, that type of university could be a great option for a student with engineering aspirations who hasn't had as much mathematics exposure and needs additional support. That's one of the beauties of US university culture, is that we have universities that help lift students up like that, and we have universities where students who already excel in those spaces can keep their education moving. So I want students to really think about their grades and whether they're applying to the right place. As a flip side to that, students often with the wrong grades, low grades, applying to top universities is something that I see every day. And you should be realistic about the grades that you've earned. So that's the other piece of this, is being realistic and really having a solid foundation of knowing the grades you have. And then considering that the university offers the major that you want to study and not considering some wild alternative just to make the university right for you or fit for you. Make sure that it's a university that offers what you're really passionate or interested in. Thinking about what programs the university is known for. Sometimes we think just, the university is such a good place and I've heard so many good things about it. And the program that you actually want to study is not very good, or it's not what you're looking for. So really take that into consideration. There are a lot of universities that people don't consider that have amazing opportunities in specific programs that students may want to take up and will thrive in that university culture based on that individual program they're interested in. And then, of course, the last thing fits into the first one, right? Will I succeed at this university? Am I going to have the grades that will allow me to be successful in my university classroom settings? Or do I have grades that mean that I'm going to be bored and stifled at this university? All of those things play into whether as you look and research universities and choosing the one for enrollment, those are things that you really want to consider. Will I be successful? And lastly, if you need additional guidance, I hope you found today very useful, but if you need additional guidance, Shorelight is here to help. We partner with some of the best universities in the United States. We provide application support. We provide a standing page of universities at a glance that help you compare universities very quickly and have the opportunity to look at different fit opportunities. What programs are available, the location, the price, all of those things that you should really consider when choosing the right place to apply in the United States. Shorelight partner universities that you'll see on the at a glance page often offer unparalleled support and on-campus support and services across the university that help students move through their academic journey and into their professional career. And then lastly, some information on signature student experiences that we offer on campus and through the application process. As the head of our enrollment management division, I can assure you that every step of the way in an admissions process as a Shorelight partner, we are here to help make sure that you understand the process make sure that you understand the right options and opportunities for you. And then also for those who allow us and opt in the application process, we showcase some other universities that you may not have considered in your first part of getting ready for applying to study in the U.S., which is gathering application materials and which universities are right for you. So we give you some additional options as well. So all those things you can do at shorelight.com. I would encourage everyone to go there. If you're interested in universities outside of Shorelight, of course, I hope that you found some of the options and tips and tricks that we talked about today useful. It looks like we have one question in the Q&A, so I'm going to go ahead and look at that. And it says, I'm planning to study at UIC for architecture in the fall of 2025. I have an IELTS of 7.0 and a GPA of 4.0. Do I need a portfolio? And if so, where can I learn the requirements? So that's a really great question. As a Shorelight partner, I can tell you that the University of Illinois Chicago does not require a portfolio for its architecture degree program at the bachelor's degree level. So if you're interested in a bachelor's degree in architecture at UIC, you wouldn't need a portfolio based on what you just provided. That being said, there are lots of architecture programs in the US that do require a portfolio, especially those whose first degree is professional or allows licensure as an architecture student or as an architecture major. So once you're finished with your degree, you can become a licensed architect. That's actually a different degree at UIC. It's the second master's level degree. And for those students, they do have to have a portfolio, but at UIC, it's built into the first part of your degree so that you have a portfolio to prepare you for phase 2 and licensure. Yes. Marina asked, how do U.S. universities consider non-U.S. passport students who finished high school in the U.S.? That's a great question. There are lots of different ways that they consider that. First of all, as long as you have to have a visa to study, you will be considered an international student. So even if you studied at a U.S. high school, for the majority of U.S. universities, you're still going to be considered an international student. Most likely, you're going to have to transfer your U.S. or your visa, your F1, J1, or M1 student visa, and you're going to have to transfer that to your new university study. And your high school counseling team and the university office, immigration office, will help you facilitate that transfer. There are lots of different things to consider. One, it's easier for a U.S. admissions office to know what grades you've achieved at a U.S. high school. So that process will be very similar to what is being reviewed for students who are from the U.S. who go to the same high school as you. What varies a lot by U.S. universities, we talked about English language placement testing earlier in our session today. What varies a lot by university and requires research and homework is what kind of waivers are available for international students who study in the United States. Some universities allow students who have 2 years of U.S. high school study to waive an English test requirement. Maybe 2 years by the time they graduate. It could be that they already have to demonstrate 2 years at the time the application is received. Others may not waive the English until you graduate from a U.S. high school. And some others may require 3 years of study. So it really does depend. One other thing that may be more common for students in the U.S., although is also possible for students around the world, is that you can use that SAT or ACT test if you do decide to take those ability tests. You may be able to use those for English language waivers as well. Depending on the score you receive on the verbal or reading and writing section, you may be able to use those at a university to not have to take a TOEFL or an IELTS test. So those are some of the ways that that information is looked at. But for the purposes of whether you're an international student, if you do not have a US passport, you would be considered an international student. Similarly, some of you may be wondering, am I an international student if I'm a US passport holder that's living abroad? I may have spent my entire life studying in another country. But for the purposes of most US universities, you're not an international student. They may have to look at your international education in a different way, but you would be considered in different ways, including opportunities for federal financial assistance that is available to US citizens. Oh, and great question, and it looks like we're at time, so this will be the last question we take today. Marina's got one more question. It's a really great one. Can a student graduating from a U.S. high school apply to U.S. universities without the APs? And what that means is without the advanced placements. So advanced placement, for those who do not know, is a test curriculum that allows students to demonstrate high college preparatory college preparation in a subject, and a knowledge that goes above and beyond what normally is taught in a U.S. curriculum. A lot of universities use advanced placement exams as part of their admissions criteria. Ivy Leagues may require a certain amount of AP examinations. Some of the universities just below in their top 25 range, Michigan, Notre Dame, etc., may require a certain level of achievement in either international baccalaureate or AP advanced placement exams. The vast majority of U.S. universities will not require you to have an advanced placement exam to enroll. The one thing that people see most is what are the criteria for the most elite universities in the United States. There are a lot of amazing universities in the United States. Once you even get out of the realm of 25 top universities that do not require advanced placement exams if you've been a U.S. student. If you've been a U.S. high school student, they wouldn't require those. What they will do is give you additional college credit if you score well enough. So a lot of students with advanced placement tests can end up earning a semester or more of university credit towards their degree from those exams. And the same thing for international students. If you're in a British curriculum school and you've taken advanced level examinations, there's a good chance the university you're applying to will give you university credit for those. If you're in an international school that offers the International Baccalaureate curriculum, it's the same sort of advanced standing principle where you can earn credits towards your undergraduate education. But all of those things, all of that is additional opportunity for growth towards finishing your degree. But for probably about 95% of U.S. universities wouldn't require you to have an advanced placement exam to be considered for admission. But we often in the media and in our searches and in discussion threads and things that you find about getting into U.S. universities, you'll see a lot of information about that, because a lot of that is geared towards applying to Harvard instead of applying to University of Illinois Chicago or Florida International University or Auburn University or University of Utah. All great institutions. None of them require you to have a set number of advanced placement exams. So for the most part, you can have a world-class top university education without having to have that. But it's a great question because in most cases, what it does is help your profile. It doesn't really hurt if you don't have them available to you. Okay? You're very welcome. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Again, this session has been recorded and we'll be sharing it out. I want to thank you all for joining us. If you're in the United States at a quite early time, if you're around the world at a different at a different time for you, whether it's afternoon or evening. Thank you again. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.